Results with Richard Rice. And today I'm in the studio with my co-host Eva Milton. How you doing, Eva?
Hey, how are you?
Doing well, doing
Awesome.
well. Yep. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year.
Thank you, thank you. And we have a very special guest, Mr. Bernard Nomberg. How you doing tonight?
Doing fine, Richard. Good afternoon or good evening, and happy early birthday to you.
Hey, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. So tonight we have a good topic, a very important topic. We're going to be speaking about workers' compensation law in the state of Alabama. And, Nomberg Law has a great reputation throughout the state, really in being an expert and a go-to firm for these particular type of issues. So glad you're able to join us. Please tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and how they can contact you.
Sure, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you all having me on this evening.
Yes, sir.
The Nomberg Law Firm is based in Birmingham, and it's my brother David and myself. Our dad is happily retired down on the Gulf Coast. He's of counsel. He was an attorney for about 45 years in Dothan, where we were from. But we've had a practice. David and I have been together for more than 15 years in Birmingham, and we handle workers' compensation, Social Security, disability, and some personal injury cases.
Excellent, excellent. And you also, like myself, you kind of engaged in this responsibility to provide, a public service in terms of putting out information, basic information about legal issues, things that maybe aren't common knowledge but should be common knowledge, just to have that foundational understanding that sometimes is necessary, just to even know that your rights have been violated, just to even know that maybe I should contact a lawyer. So talk a little bit about how you started with that and give the information out for how we can find you online.
Sure, I appreciate it. It's a great question, and it's a good way for us to start about this. It's a very confusing topic. People who get hurt on the job, immediately all of life's stressors ramp up. It's your health, it's your job, it's your finances, the communication you have with your family, everything. It's like a domino effect. And like anything else in life, when you have stress, it's mainly because you don't have answers. The greatest fear, you've heard this before, is the fear of the unknown.
Right.
So not having knowledge creates that stress. So if I'm an injured person and I've been hurt on the job, I'm afraid for my job. I don't know if somebody in management's going to come down hard on me and terminate me or make life very, very difficult for me. So it's 11:30 at night, I'm hurting, and I don't have answers to what I need to know. So we, about 2 years ago, started putting on social media answers to your questions. And if you go to our YouTube channel, it's the Nomberg Law Firm YouTube channel, you'll see about 350, 360 videos about different areas of the law. And we've broken it up by topics. And they're pretty good descriptive. All you have to do is find us, Nomberg Law Firm, on the YouTube channel. You go into the search bar and you type in whatever your topic may be, medical, compensation, whatever it is, and that's where you can find a lot of answers. And we add more videos every single week.
Yeah, that's really impressive. I mean, I've looked at the body of work that you provided, and just to be able to have that consistency, to be able to stick with it and do it on a regular basis is very impressive. And then the information is provided in an accessible way. And I just really can't speak it, highly enough of how much value I think that adds to just the general public.
Well, thank you. You know what it is? It's our modern day law book. It's society is so mobile. Everybody has a phone or some kind of tablet or device, right, whatever it is. They're not sitting at home on a big box computer anymore. So everybody knows YouTube. Everybody knows
right.
Google.
Mm-hmm.
You just get in there and start typing, and you'll find it.
Right. Well, that's awesome, and I think that it's something that we'll see more lawyers begin to do, and other professionals as well, just to make their practice, more accessible. I know, right? We want to keep it away, but hey, it's out there. It's out there.
Oh, it's definitely out there. I welcome it. I talk about this stuff all the time.
I know you do. So let's talk a little bit about the actual substance of the conversation. What is workers' compensation law? How is it kind of distinguishable? Why did the Alabama legislature, other state legislatures, create this specific area of law for these type of injuries?
Well, I won't bore you with the long
the legislative history. You want to get into that?
Horrible history of this, but workers in Alabama have never been treated fairly, and they still aren't. We are the lowest and least compensated injured workers in the United States. There is currently they've put together a unified bill that hopefully will be considered in 2019 to make our compensation rates more comparable to other states around the country. But for now, what's at issue when you get hurt? It's a no fault, for the most part, type of laws. So even if you create your own injury, so long as you weren't inebriated or violated certain safety laws, you can have your medical care paid for. And again, there are certain parameters you have to follow through. You can't just go to your own doctor. You have to go through what we call the system. If they're going to pay for your medical care, your mileage, your prescriptions, whatever it is, but they'll pay 100% of, so long as the employer who you work for was subject to the Alabama work comp laws. There are several types of employment, and I won't get into much of that tonight, but you have to have at least 5 employees, and your company has to be subject to the Alabama work comp laws in order for work comp to kick in. Unfortunately, there's a lot of employment out there, situations. For example, if you work on a farm,
right,
they're not going to carry workers' comp, and
right.
you're kind of on your own. But
exactly.
But some of those companies also do carry other types of insurance that could be applicable.
Definitely. And so there are also requirements about the size of the employer. I don't think
5 or more.
5 or more. Okay. And then, so let's say I am working on the job and I sustain an injury. Like, what do I need to do? What are my first steps immediately?
I'll get into that, but one thing I did forget. I'm not talking about if you're a federal employee.
Right.
That's a whole different set of laws, like if you work for the Postal Service. I'm not talking about if you're a state of Alabama employee. Let's say that you're employed as an educator in the state education system. Again, another completely different set of circumstances and laws. This is for the private employer setting.
Right.
So if you get hurt on the job, you have a requirement to notify someone in management, your supervisor, the owner, someone who is on a decision-making level. I got hurt at work. Here's what happened, and I need medical care. And you have a timeline in which you have to notify them. If you don't notify them of these types of things, they're not expected to be proactive for you. Now, some employers will, particularly ones who may value you as an employee.
Right. We don't want to make too many assumptions.
That's right. But if you've been on the job 15 minutes and you're an employee of a company subject to the laws, you're covered.
Excellent. Excellent. And so this idea of like notifying someone in management, I mean, it seems like that's just like, how could lawyers debate over what that means? But it is a topic of debate sometimes. So what does that look like? A lot of times if you may have somebody who's working on an assembly line, they're typically not working alone, so there will be witnesses. I mean, what is your responsibility beyond saying, okay, yes, I'm injured and I need him, hopefully there will be a nurse on duty, or maybe some type of emergency medical staff will be requested and will respond. But what are your responsibilities beyond that?
Well, let's put the scenario that it is somebody who works on a production line.
Okay.
So let's say they're in a big warehouse and it's noisy. They got on earphones and there's a lot of noise in there, but you're working alongside other coworkers. And let's say a machine malfunctions and it pulls your hand into the machine and you're really hurt. Well, human nature, you would hope that your coworkers will help and assist you right there to get you out of that dangerous situation, and then somebody goes to get somebody in management to notify them. Typically, those big production companies are going to have an on-site medical care, so that'll be your first tip, unless it's really a catastrophic, horrible situation, and then 911 will be called and get you out to the right medical facility.
Right.
But that's putting them on notice. Now, sometimes you may have an injury. Oh, I pulled my back working on my forklift in the warehouse. It's aches and pains. I'm now 47 years of age, and I've been in the warehouse for 15 years. You may not realize for 3 days that you really have a real injury.
Right.
And at that point, you still are under the timeline, and you still have to report it to let management know, hey, the other day I stepped off the forklift, slipped, my back is hurting, I need to go to the medical, I need to be seen by work comp. But most people are fearful for the job because we're in an at-will employment state.
Right.
So you can be hired or fired at the will of the company as long as it doesn't violate the law. And that's why I put out these videos to help educate people, to let them know you do have rights. You need to be proactive. You need to protect yourself.
Right, that's a good point, about Alabama being an at-will state, and a lot of times that's an issue that gets lost, and so many people come in complaining about, reasons why they were terminated, because they had an employer that was unfair, or didn't like them, or, treated them differently based on some personality conflict. And when you say violate the law, talk about a little bit about that. I think it's relevant for this.
Well, you brought up one very common thing that comes up where personality conflicts occur,
right.
Whether it's between coworkers and you get sabotaged in the workplace, or your management doesn't like you because you're now threatening their job in their mind. none of those things, personality conflicts, are not protected.
Right.
That's just a crappy situation, and you got to get out of there. But what is protected is they cannot, for example, if it's a civil rights violation, you may be in a protected class based on race, religion, age, pregnancy, whatever it is, but they can't violate. What they can't do is retaliate against you because you're maintaining a workers' compensation claim. They're never going to come out and say, "All right, we're getting rid of you because you're costing us money in the insurance." If they do, call me, please.
Right.
Call me. But they're never. It's never that blatant. It's circumstantial.
Right. Definitely. And so I just want to remind our listeners that this episode, if you want to tune into it later and kind of review some of the information that's on it, you can check it out online at thericefirmllc.com. And we'll also be sharing this on our Facebook page with Results with Richard Rice. We're going to head to a break. When we come back, we'll continue this conversation.
Too fast, too loud,
No,
too
perfect.
David says you sound good.
Yeah, tell him to shut up. Tell him Richard said hey.
Tell them I said roll tide. I'm looking for a victory for my birthday. That's what what do you want for your birthday? How about another national championship?
That's right. And who in the world put it out in California? Good grief.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. It's making it tough for people to get out to the game.
Is it playing live on Facebook? Or is it, okay, because I couldn't find it.
It's on my page.
Oh,
It should be on yours if you accepted the tag.
Oh, okay.
Where can she find it so we can share it out?
Let me see if I
I
can
just
do it.
tagged one of your pages.
Go into the
I'm
notifications.
going to share it to Richard's results page, and then that'll be easier.
Okay, I did just accept the tag. I forgot that.
I just shared it to results with Richard Rice. We're still live right now, just so y'all know.
Are you a pro guy? College guy?
More of a college guy. But this time of year is kind of hard to be into.
I have 2 questions, Richard.
Okay, I'm going to come back to you first.
To the firm's page and to my professional page? Okay, thanks. I'll buy you dinner.
Oh, thank you.
Because if you didn't do that, then you're on your own.
Did you ask Gary if he was recording?
I didn't ask him. But
So
are we recording? Are we recording this episode, Gary? Okay.
So did you hear this? Sydney's in the wedding planning business, and there's an ad right now talking about it. Are you going to that? Oh, it's in September.
You're on Facebook Live, so we can talk about it.
This is behind the scenes information. This is what the reviewers want, okay? They want the insight, that exclusive
I don't want to
information.
make any of my vendor friends angry, so I'm not going to say anything.
Smart girl.
I think they're talking about a sample sale though, but we're doing our own in February, so. David's been tweeting it. I'm getting notifications.
That's why I'm pre-recording my shows. I'm not doing all these commercials.
I know it. I know it's a lot.
It's talking about alligators at Compass Fund. That's what Uncle David tweeted.
I just got a notification.
Yeah, alligator.
David runs our Twitter, so he's pretty active with that. I do the Facebook and Instagram.
I did all of it.
It's a big job.
Yeah.
So,
I don't think Uncle David would know how it works Facebook if he's trying. Although I hope he's watching it because
He probably is through Leanne. Are they gonna take you out to eat dinner, or do you eat at home?
I would actually argue for us to eat at home, but I don't know. You know, we'll see. Yeah.
We drove all the way down here not to eat, sit in your kitchen.
They don't want to do that. They don't want to do that. That would be my vote, though.
Oh, Chicago just won the game. Oh, there was a timeout before they kicked it.
Welcome back to Results with Richard Rice. I'm in the studio with Eva Melton
Hey.
and Mr. Bernard Nomberg, and we're discussing workers' compensation law in Alabama. Just before the break, we were speaking a little bit about some of those illegal reasons as you know, why you can be terminated, and speaking a little bit about retaliatory discharge, which, you know, is how common of an issue is that?
Well, it's quite common, but it's a very difficult standard under the law to pursue, or to win in a court of law.
Right.
It's very easy for an employer to find a reason to terminate an injured worker. As long as they do so within the law, they're fine. For example, if there's a big layoff going on and you happen to be an injured worker, they may just put you in that big layoff with 30 other people from the warehouse and say you were part of that layoff, regardless if they were or not. That's just one example.
Right.
so I was watching your videos since I knew that you were the guest. So I've been watching a lot of your videos this weekend. They're very great. They can be found on YouTube, everybody. But one of the questions I had, and I thought it was just a great content for everyday people, is, you know, why not to lie on your job applications and how that can impact you in the future.
Can I tell you how many cases have been derailed that when we get into what's called the discovery process, after you file a lawsuit and you exchange questions and you're asking for answers and for documents, one of the things that we ask for is the personnel file from the employer. And inevitably in there is going to be the application. And most people, when they go to fill out an application, are very scared to disclose the fact that they may have been hurt earlier in their career, because they think it'll impact whether they get the job, and naturally so.
Mm-hmm.
But if you put you have not been injured on the job when in fact you have,
Wow.
that right there ends the case. And there's so many times you can try to explain it away 100 different ways, but you wrote that when you applied for the job, and that is tantamount to fraud, the way the law looks at it.
Wow.
Yeah. That is surprising because, you know, I don't know how common it is, but, you know, you always want to present yourself in your best light, you know, when you're applying for a job or you're meeting someone for the first time. And so, you know, what is I guess, you know, embellishment as opposed to being dishonest? It's a difficult kind of distinction, I think, for people to make sometimes.
And let me share something that kind of goes with that. You get hurt on the job. Let's say you've had a back injury. You're a truck driver. You've been in an accident. You now have a bad injury from the accident.
Right.
But you've had 2 prior back surgeries 10 years before when you were employed somewhere else. The way the law looks at it, so long as you could do all of the functions of your job before you had this most recent accident and had no limitations, no restrictions, according to your then doctors or doctors at the time,
Right.
it's as if you never had those prior injuries.
Wow.
And most people don't understand that concept, and it's very difficult to show that until after they've met with us and we've explained the law to them and how it operates.
Wow. Second thing that, you know, stood out to me as I was reviewing your website and your content on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, you start talking about nurses and the number of injuries that they sustain in comparison to other professions. Can you talk just a little bit about that and why that's important to know?
I don't have the current statistics with me here tonight, but historically nurses have been one of the highest percentages per capita of in any profession to be injured in the workplace. And if you really think about the typical nurse, they're engaged with patients in a high intensity, high pressure situation if they're in the ER, or in the emergency room, or if they're handling patients who are, for whatever reason, have bad medicines or reactions. Because they're interacting with patients who could be twice their body weight, they may not have been properly trained. The hospital or the clinic may be understaffed. There's a myriad of reasons,
Right.
but I interviewed Chrissy Custis a couple of months ago, and we have a couple of videos on there that talk about how you can protect yourself in the workplace if you're a nurse. We talk about the most common injuries for nurses. We also talk about violence in the workplace. If you remember, maybe it was a year ago, I'm not sure the date, but over at UAB Highland when there was an unfortunate shooting and multiple deaths, a terrible situation. And how do you protect yourself? What do you do? But nurses really are right there on the front lines as much as anybody.
Great.
Yeah, that's important. That's good information to know. I didn't realize, those inherent dangers that are associated with nursing. So that's news to me. And like we talked about before the show, every one of these episodes, you always learn something new. Most of the shows are really geared towards the general public, and I don't want to be too wonky, but given your experience and your family's experience in this particular practice area, what are some of the things that you're doing in terms of maybe, I guess, lobbying the legislature for change, or do you think that's necessary? One of the issues, obviously, is the pay that attorneys receive. I think that's an issue that clearly needs to be addressed. This is a complicated area of law, just as complicated, or maybe more so than any other personal injury claim. And so what is the logical justification for the cap? I guess explain to the listeners what that is,
Sure,
and then
sure.
if you are doing anything, what can we do to help you?
Well, it's not that you've opened up a can of worms, but you've really hit on a great topic that's been subject in my world of the legal profession for a couple of years now. The Alabama State Bar put together a task force about a year and a half ago. In May of 2017 here in Birmingham, Judge Ballard issued an order making part of the Alabama State Work Comp Act unconstitutional. And when you do that, that meant the entire set of laws was unconstitutional. So rather than all of the sky is falling, Chicken Little, that all calmed down after a couple of weeks. Cooler heads prevailed. The State Bar put together a task force of, I think it was about 25 people from all aspects of the work comp world. The defense bar, the plaintiff's bar, the medical liaison, the insurance folks, all areas. And they worked diligently for several months to create a unified bill that is now in Montgomery. I don't know how the sausage is made, so to speak, but I know that within this year, hopefully it will then be presented, and then hopefully they'll pass it.
Okay.
But what's part of that is improving. There's a cap, a 220 cap, which at the time it was put into place in 92. Think about the cost of living change from 1992 to 2019.
Right.
It's a little change.
Absolutely.
Well, even back then, the 220 amount. And let me just briefly explain what that is. If you get hurt on the job and you have a what we call a scheduled member injury, let's say you've had a pinky chopped off.
Right.
Well, it's worth, I forget what the exact amount is, like $6,800 or $8,600 total, period. Well, you're going to get paid out at $220 a week until it gets paid out. And that's just, nobody can survive on that.
Right.
Wow.
I mean, assuming hopefully you can go back to work after your recovery time, but they're addressing the 220 cap. They're addressing the attorney's fees is 15%,
Right.
which is the lowest in the country. And honest to goodness, even though this is the type of work that I do, that was not one of the forefront reasons for putting this together. But the proposed bill, it really is to help bring the injured worker, hopefully, maybe into the 20th century. I don't know about the 21st, but we are so behind compared to Mississippi, Georgia, any other state. But there's a laundry list of things that really would bore the listeners tonight, and as well as you guys. And we don't have enough time. We're going to turn off the lights and everybody go home before I finish. But hopefully that what is going to be the new laws, if it gets passed, will bring Alabama a little bit closer to better compensation for injured workers.
Most definitely. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something that we should all be pursuing. I think that, the reasons for that seem to be evident on the face. And so I'd like for you to just remind the listeners again how they can contact you. And
Sure.
if you have any predictions for the national championship game tomorrow night, go ahead and share those as well.
Oh boy, you must have been talking to my brother David. Well, of course, Richard. We're the Nomberg Law Firm. We're here in Birmingham on Montclair Road. Our website is nomberglaw.com. Our phone number is 205-930-6900. You can find us on just about any social media platform, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We have a website that's very active, and we have a very active YouTube channel. As far as prediction, a lot of my friends and family believe it's going to be a blowout in Bama's favor. I don't know. I think it's going to be closer. Clemson is as close to an Alabama-like team as there is in the country. They have wonderful athletes. They're missing that really important D lineman, which I'm not sad about. I'm sad for him, but not
Right.
sad that he's going to be gone.
Definitely. We'll
But
take it.
a scrambling, running, mobile quarterback like Murray, like Cam Newton in the past, like Johnny Manziel, they've always given Alabama a hard time.
Right.
But Sunshine is his nickname. Trevor Lawrence is a fantastic quarterback, but
He
he's
is.
really more of a drop back thrower.
Definitely.
So it'll be a good test for the DBs.
Definitely will be. I agree with you on that, and I hope that the defense can, kind of assert itself again. I think this season has really, most of the media coverage has been focused on the quarterback and offense, and rightfully so. But I really do think that the defense has been underrated, and they sort of proved that in the last couple of games. And I look for them to continue to establish that type of dominance. And I look to see Alabama winning the game maybe by 2 touchdowns, maybe 17 points, scoring in the high 40s.
I also like to think that number 2, Jalen Hurts, is kind of the X factor for Alabama.
Definitely, right.
There's nobody like him in the
That's
country.
so true, and it's just the type of leadership that he's exhibited, and just being humble in kind of a tough situation is, I guess, a lesson for us all.
What an outstanding young man.
Most definitely. And so you also have weekly shows on Facebook. Tell us about that, and what's your next topic? Tell us where we can find
All
it.
right. On Tuesdays, I have Nomberg Law Live, and I appreciate you asking. I've been doing it for about a year and a half. I've done about almost 90 episodes. I bring in guests, not into a studio like we are now, but typically online through an online app where you can be sitting at your desk, me sitting at mine, where I interview lawyers one week, lay persons in the community, somebody who runs a nonprofit, somebody who, on Tuesday, a childhood friend of mine who's a comedian up in New York City is going to be my next guest. The week after that, I've got Jeff Pearlman, who's a New York Times best-selling author who wrote about the USFL back his most recent book. So I kind of rotate it, but it's every Tuesday at 10 o'clock Central, 8 a.m. Pacific. And then the other thing that I do with any regularity is called On the Trail. And I love to hike. Birmingham and this part of the state is just blessed with hundreds of miles of trails. So I'll find some trails with decent reception, and I'll just talk about something that's on top of my mind.
That's excellent. That's good. And I mean, I think that's, shows that you have balance and that you're kind of taking everything into account and being a lawyer. So I want to say thank you for setting a good example. It's something for me to look to and kind of model my career after. And so thank you for that, and thank you for joining us on the show. And I'm going to continue to follow you on social media, and I would encourage our listeners to do the same. And if you want to catch this episode, you can find it on the RiceFirmLLC.com or on our social media pages as well. I want to say thank you for listening to Results with Richard Rice, and we'll be back next Sunday.
Thank you, Richard.
That was
I
great.
felt like I was yelling.
It's almost required sometimes, seriously, these mics, but I'm glad that we got everything in. That sounds
Well,
like,
thank you, guys.
Y'all tell everybody bye.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
There's some popcorn. We got
I know, right?
popcorn.
Thank you, Rhonda, for the popcorn if you're watching. Naughty but nice.